And out to the U.S., where President Donald Trump says he will announce 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum products entering the United States, while also threatening to further ignite the trade war that has shaken markets worldwide. Donald Trump did not specify which country would be subject to the retaliatory tariffs, but said they would not affect all countries. These latest tariff threats come after his announcement last month of plans to impose 25% tariffs on all Canadian and Mexican goods, as well as 10% tariffs on Chinese imports. The U.S. president later agreed to delay the measures on Canada and Mexico after the two countries pledged to do more to stem the flow of illegal drugs and undocumented migrants across the U.S. border. Mr. Trump says they are necessary to ensure greater cooperation from the countries to stop illegal immigration and prevent fentanyl smuggling. But he also pledged to use tariffs to boost domestic manufacturing and raise revenues for the federal government.
Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff. Nobody can have a majority stake for U.S. Steel. They can for other companies, but not for U.S. Steel. I think you agree with that, right? U.S. Steel was one of our great companies, and through a lot of stupidity and bad government and also bad management of the company, it lost that luster, but it's going to gain it back, and tariffs are going to help. Tariffs are going to make it very successful again. And I think it has good management now, too.
Well, let's now bring in Ejike Okpa, who is a global affairs analyst, joining us from Dallas, Texas, United States of America. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
So in less than a month of President Trump's administration, we've heard so much on tariff. And I just wanted to ask, because there was a deal that was reached between all three countries, China, Mexico, and the U.S. at some point. So what is the justification for this new tariff?
Well, let's go back to trade. You know, trade has to be an activity between two people. That's why it's called bilateral. And then, you know, when you go beyond two, it becomes multilateral. So in this case, America is looking at it. We have a huge trade deficit. And that deficit is because we never really held any of our trading partners to some sort of conditions. You know, so now that Trump is coming, second missionary journey, is recognized that we have to, especially countries that are our neighbors, Canada and Mexico, they're supposed to be friendly because, you know, their well-being is largely dependent on America trading with them. But they have tried to undermine America. And we say, hey, you know, you can't bite the finger that feeds you. If you do, we're going to bite you back. And that's why we said, if you don't do what we want, how we want it, then we're going to slap you with, you know, trade so that anything coming from your country is going to be very expensive, you know, and that is going to make you guys come to table for negotiation. Remember, all of these things he's saying is to force the hands of these people to want to negotiate. And at that time, you know, it's going to be a win-win for both of them and everybody and America. We can't continue to be feeding the world where at the same time, you know, America is being undermined by those who benefit from the generosity of America.
But hundreds of thousands of jobs in the U.S. are linked to the steel and aluminum input from Canada into the U.S. economy. There's also a lot at stake for the U.S. too, isn't there?
Yes, a lot of jobs are connected to all of those things. But then Americans themselves are saying, you know, we need these jobs. The era and the decades of, you know, outsourcing, let's go somewhere else. These jobs are not for Americans. We've realized that, you know, we've created holes in our own pockets. So now what we want to do is, if you want to invest in those sectors where you think you have an advantage, come on in. But if you're going to export to us, you know, under a trade agreement or a trade understanding, it has to be one that benefits us. For instance, you look at China. When China exports things to America, then there's nothing that goes back to China. It's always one way. And we've done this over the years, and that's what has enabled China to feel that they are a superpower. And so we now say, okay, China, you buy from us, or we're just going to make it harder for you to export to America. And I was in China early part of last month, and they're struggling. The Chinese told me, hey, our economy is having difficulty. So again, all of these things for every country, whether it's Nigeria trading with Ghana, you have to be in a position to strengthen your own benefit. You can't just let anybody come in there, dump things in your country and walk away, and then you pay them and they don't pay you. Trade has to be balanced, or you cut it off and then enable domestic production in your own country in order for you to grow.
And I hear you, but if you say that China cannot import to the U.S., if you say that Canada, Mexico cannot import to the U.S., especially steel and aluminum that the military needs, where then do you find, because America doesn't produce enough steel to make, especially, again, I'm stressing on the military. So how then do you make up for the shortfall in the meantime?
Well, that is just one of those things they say. We're not in a crisis shortage that we don't know. We don't have domestic resources. We do have it, but what has happened over the years is that we looked at the comparative pricing and said, okay, we're going to have to import, and that's what is stifling our own domestic steel industry. But now, if you know what's going on, and Nippon, which is a huge Japanese steel company, and they want to invest in America, U.S. steel, not buy. Because under Biden they were going to buy it, and then Trump stopped it. So now they want to invest. So again, remember, America is a huge consumer country, and whether that is good or bad for us, we are the ones that has enabled a lot of countries' production capacity. So it is to their own benefits to come in and begin to have favorable terms with America, so that the trade deficit we have, we don't have to reduce it. Otherwise, we can do it. America has the capacity. We are very innovative. We are very, creative, and we have the financial resources that most countries don't have. So we may have a temporary discomfort, but at the long term, we're going to be the one emerging stronger.
I hear you say temporary discomfort, but we know that China has also now retaliated, I think about 10% tariff as well. Will Americans not push back if this trade war means that they have to pay more for commodities like cars and drinks?
Well, again, everything is on the table. Chinese 10%, okay, fine. We're saying 25%. You do the math. We still have an advantage because they know there's a whole lot of things America don't do. We don't buy Chinese cars. We don't buy Chinese. The things we buy from China, are things that are more like a consumer perishable stuff. Because they have figured out how to make things cheap. But when it comes to the high tech and the very sophisticated equipment, we're not buying that from China. So whether they throw in the 10% as a way to say we too can poke at you, that's fine, but they're going to want to come to the negotiating table in order for them to have something that favors them. Otherwise, we can do without China. We can.
It's not just China. There is China, there is Mexico, there's Canada. But in this latest statement, what President Trump said was that it's going to be, on everyone. And he said some countries were going to be exempted. But it means that allies and adversaries are going to be affected. Isn't that a dangerous move to make when you're also now putting your allies on the offensive?
No, not necessarily. Again, I like what you say. The use of the word ally. If Canadians and Mexicans feel that they are, because they are the only two other countries in the North American continent with America, it is to their best interest, to do the work with America. During the Biden administration, they enabled illegal people crossing a border. They didn't care. But now we say, hey, if you're going to be a good neighbor, why are you encouraging what is happening? Because people wouldn't be able to come to America if Mexico didn't open their border, because they have to go all the way, through Mexico to get to the southern border of America. And then, the Canadians on the other side. So now they too are saying, we're going to tighten the border. We're going to actually put border enforcement in our own borders so that we can do what a good neighbor. All every country wants is good neighbor. That's your regional countries are your biggest opportunity before you start to go international or beyond those. So when the regional neighbors are not cooperating, undermining you, and you are the superpower, you're going to have to punish them. The Canadian oil will not be able to be shipped if they don't have the Keystone pipeline from Canada that will go through America to the ocean in order for it to be exported. So they're looking at it, and they're looking at the billions of dollars that they will lose, because who else is trading with them? Russia is not trading with them. The northern part of Canada is a frozen continent, and so they need the American part. Again, those are some of the strategic things countries do. They look at what their comparative advantages are, and then they begin to leverage it. This is not shutting everything down. We just say, come to the table, let's talk. And when we're doing that talk, we have to recognize that love is proximity. The nearer, the better. If you offend us, we have no option than to do what? Bite you back. And America has what it takes to do it, and they know it.
Well, interesting development ahead. So we'll see how, some of these countries, especially Europe, response to this latest move, on tariffs. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Global Affairs Analyst, Ejike Okpa.
Well, thank you for having me.